Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight we are on Module 1, Lesson 3. So please open your homework books to page 21. And we are going to start a concept that you have probably never learned about in 4th grade, and it has to do with something called exponents. So again, it has to do with something called exponents. So before we start, I'm going to kind of explain to you what an exponent is and what it means. So you might have seen them before and just not known what they are. So an exponent is when you have a larger number, and up in the top right-hand corner, you will see a smaller number, like that. So this large number right here is called the base. It's the base. I always remember the big number is the base number. And the small number is actually what is the exponent. That is the exponent, the small number. So what this means is it means you have your base number and the exponent is how many of them you have in a multiplication problem. So for example, since I have a 10, it means I have tens. And the exponent's 3, so it means I'm going to multiply 3 of them. That's what this stands for, is 10 with an exponent 3 means 3 tens being multiplied. Now, in 5th grade, we really only work with bases of 10, but you might see in iReady or iExcel or other programs different numbers being used as a base. It doesn't always have to be a 10. It could be any number. So for example, I could have a base of 4 and a base of 2 with an exponent of 4. And what this would mean would be I'm going to multiply 2's and I'm going to have 4 of them. I'm going to have 4 of them. So when I actually go to solve this, sometimes people see this and think it's 8. It's not 8 because it's not saying 2 times 4. What it's saying is I have 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. So when I go to solve this, I get 16. Let me move that up. So I actually get 16. So 2 exponent with an exponent 4 is the answer would be 16. Okay, so that's what an exponent means and what it looks like. Okay, now the way you say these, and we're going to practice this even though it's not in our book, it's just so when we're saying these, we want to be able to read them correctly. So I'm going to move down here and use the space down here as some notebook space. So if I have a 10 with an exponent 1, the way I would say this is I'm going to say out loud. So I would speak and I'd say 10 to the first power. That's how I would read that. If I had a 10 with an exponent 2, this one's said a little different. This one is said 10 squared. And I like to think of a square as a two-dimensional shape. A square is a two-dimensional shape. So that one is 10 squared. If I have a 10 with an exponent 3, I say this as 10 cubed. And again, a cube is a three-dimensional shape. So that's how I kind of remember that. If I have a 10 with an exponent 4, I go back to the power. So I would say 10 to the 4th power. And this is going to continue as long as you go on. So if I keep going all the way to 10 exponent 18, I'm going to say 10 to the 18th power. 18th power. And it would continue to 10 to the 91st power, 10 to the 98th power. So they're all going to be power except for these two. Those two are the only exception. So when you hear me saying them in class or in videos, I'm going to be reading them using this correct way. Okay, another note before we actually get started that should help us really understand these is how we write them. So we have three forms. I'm going to kind of write three boxes. So I might take the rest of my paper and divide it into three columns. And I'm going to make three headings. If for some reason you ran out of room here, you have the space next door. So you can use the whole page over here to take your notes as well. Okay, so don't feel squished. If you need room, use what's next door. But we have something called exponential. You might want to pause and look at how to spell that, form. And then we have something called a multiplication expression. Multiplication expression. I'm going to run out of space. I'm going to have to go into that column. And then finally, we have standard form. So you might see these words in some of your questions. Those are the three different ways we could write this. So if we have a 10 base with an exponent 1, that means I'm going to be multiplying 10s, but I'm only going to have one of them, which means my answer or my standard form is only 10. If I have a base with an exponent 2, which is 10 squared, that means I'm multiplying 10s, and the 2 means I have 2 of them, which if I solve 10 times 10, my answer or my standard form is 100. If I have 10 with an exponent 3, I would say 10 cubed. And the way that I write this is I am multiplying 10s and I have 3 of them. So if I solve this, I have 10 times 10 is 100, and 100 times 10 is 1,000. Okay, we're only going to do one more. So if I have 10 exponent 4, I would say 10 to the 4th power, which means I'm multiplying 10s, and I have 4 of them, which let's see if I can do this. 10 times 10 is 100, times 10 more is 1,000, times 10 more is 10,000. I forgot my comma there. Okay, see if you look at this and see some patterns. What do you kind of see? So looking at your exponents and looking at your standard form, see if you see a pattern. If you do, see if you could easily figure out how many zeros 10 to the 7th power is going to have. How could I easily figure out what 10 to the 7th power? See if you could try that on your own. I'll give you, check it in the morning. Okay, so hopefully those notes have explained what exponents mean, and now I could do my problems a lot easier. So I'm going to come back up and let's work on some of these problems. So number 1, 2, and 3 says, write each product. Product means the answer for multiplication, or quotient, which is the answer for division, in exponential form. So they want me to write this using an exponent. Well, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 10s. So that's going to be 10 to the 5th power. Okay, this one's a little tricky because they've already combined my 100. Well, I know 100 is the same as 10 times 10. So I know I have 10 times 10 times 10, which means I have 3 10s, which is 10 cubed. 10 cubed. I maybe could have even figured out using the zeros to help me. Okay, this next one's a little tricky because this is a division. So think about what's going to have to happen to my 100,000. My 100,000. Well, what did we do before? If I have 100,000 and I divide it by 10, it's going to go down one place value. It's going to get smaller. And because there was the 1 0, I'm going to take 1 away, which leaves me with, let's see, I have a 1 now, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4 zeros. So it's 1,000. So how many tens would I need to get to 1,000? Well, I could come down here and kind of use this to help me. To get to 1,000, I needed 3 tens. I made a mistake, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you caught that before I did. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 zeros left. I'm sorry. I need to get to 10,000. I need to get to 10,000. So let's come back down here, and I have 10 exponent 4 gets to 10,000. So that's 4 tens. And hopefully you're seeing the pattern with how many zeros there are. So I have 10 to the 4th power. Okay, for our last two, this says 7 times 10 to the 5th power. Well, 10 to the 5th power would mean I have 5 tens being multiplied. Or if you figured out the zero trick, this means I'm going to end up having 5 zeros. So I have 7, and 10 to the 5th power is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 zeros, which is 100,000. So 7 times 1 is 7, and it's going to be 700,000. That's how I would have attacked that. Now this one is different because it's going to be getting smaller. So I'm going to have to take away zeros. So 10 to the 4th power should have 4 zeros. So I'm going to take away 1, 2, 3, 4, which would leave me with just 6, which makes sense because 10 to the 4th power, if I look down here, is 10,000. So if I divide this by 10,000, that's going to work. So 60,000 divided would get me divided by 10,000, or by 10 to the 4 would give me 6. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this is completely new to you, so it's okay if you're not feeling great, but please find some room, make a circle, and tell me, are you a 4 where you could help teach it tomorrow? Are you a 3 where you feel comfortable working with your friends? Or are you a 2 where you need some help from me or a friend? Or are you a 1 where you need lots of help from me? All right, make sure you mark it, put it back in your backpack, and have a wonderful evening. Good night.